GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, this is Kip Winger, and you're listening to the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rock star Robbie Vegas with another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. Today, my guest is Chris Doliber, also known as Godzilla. He is the bass player of Madam X. We are going to dig into the history of Madam X up until their new album. That's right, they have a new album coming out in 2024, so we'll get a little info on that. And, of course, we're going to trace it back to their humble beginnings and what Chris is up to now. So before I bring you that interview, let's listen to a little bit of Madam X here, and then we'll get Chris on the line. All right, so first thing I want to do before we officially get started is thank you once again for being here for the first time on the All Bets Are Off podcast. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So I want to take this back even before Madam X, and I want to know what initially even got you into music in the first place.
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I was 5 years old, just approaching my 6th birthday, and my grandparents said, "What do you want for your birthday?" A little backstory on this. There was a wonderful woman who would come to our cabin in northern Michigan and play guitar and sing. And her name is Marie. And she's long gone. But so that made a mark in my youth. I thought how wonderful that is that somebody could sing and play, an instrument. So my grandparents said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, I want a guitar. And they said, "Well, why do you want a guitar?" I said, "Because when I'm old, I can play guitar and make money." And they bought me this giant, it's not that big, but on my 5-6-year-old frame, it was this huge Gibson, right? Mm-hmm. I could barely get my arm around the box to strum it, let alone push down these steel strings to play it. And then they made me take lessons. And that was kind of my first introduction to music, and I hated it. It was, I didn't know it was going to have to be work and you're going to have to practice, Yeah. That never occurred to me as a kid. I think I wrote my first song when I was in 1st or 2nd grade. Mm. And it was a cute little song. I think it was like one chorus and a verse, but I could sing it to you right now because it's stuck in my head, but I won't. And then I was watching like Don Kirshner's rock concert or one of those 70s pre-MTV. You've got, half hour in your life to watch live music or watch music on TV. Mm-hmm. One of those things. It wasn't Solid Gold. It was pre that. I think it was maybe Midnight Special, Don Kirshner's rock concert or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Mott the Hoople was on. And Ian Hunter had this he I don't know. The way he delivered a song was like so carefree, and the song was All the Young Dudes, and that his cavalier approach to performing, and of course there was Alice Cooper, and I loved Alice Cooper and Kiss, but it was that moment when I was watching Ian Hunter, like, I want to do this. I want to be that guy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I had to, come from another planet or be the god of thunder, Gene Simmons or anything. I could just be that guy,
Yeah.
And that was really my moment of like, I want to pick up my guitar and play music again. you know,
Okay.
and do some, play music I want to play, not, Mary Had a Little Lamb and whatever else I was studying as a child. My parents would make me watch Segovia on some television, public broadcast or something, and try to mold me into Andres Segovia, but I was never that interested in being that. That's it.
I mean, fair enough. But now I guess my next question would be, when do you make the transition from guitar to bass?
Well, my parents, again, my house was the house where everybody gathered. My high school friends would come to spend the night and never leave. It was, my parents were always welcoming, and our home environment was that where there was, in the basement was, they bought a drum kit. They had Marshalls, they had bass amps, they had PA system, they had everything.
Oh, wow.
And I guess my father was worked in a factory. He's a tool and die man, but so he would have to get up like at 5 a.m. to go to work, and we would be playing music till 3 a.m. God bless them. They endured to put up with a lot of bullshit, horse shit, and bad performances, but they did it to have us. They knew where we were all the time. They knew where the whole neighborhood was all the time. It was in our basement.
Yeah.
And at one point we had I played guitar, and we needed a bass player, and I had a bass guitar and I had a bass amp, so I became the bass player, and I really liked it. I always play guitar to satisfy me and to write music, but performance wise, you need a bass player, and I'm happy to be that guy.
Okay. So it kind of just stuck with you from that point forward.
Yeah. I don't need to be, I don't need to be in that guitar position to feel, validation or something. I'm just happy to be in the shadows and play bass.
So I guess my next question would be, before Madam X, do you remember what types of bands and what bands you were playing in then?
Yeah, I was in club bands. We played 6 days a week, 7 days a week. When I was just out of high school, I joined a group called, I think it was called Open Road or something. We did like Holiday Inns and things like that all over, tri-state area. It was a traveling band, and just playing cover music, Yeah.
I don't know.
And Madam X was actually a cover band when Maxine and Roxy hired me. I was in a competing band in Detroit, and Detroit at that time had probably 200 clubs playing music almost every day of the week. There was a jillion bands, and there was these jam rags that, so-and-so was playing it here, there, And then there was the top of the heap bands that were, older than us, age wise, and more established and had their shit together. But we played a lot, and I heard that these two girls were auditioning bass players, and I was in a competing band, and a friend of mine who ran truck for both bands got me this audition. And it was like a cattle call, there was probably, I don't know, a dozen bass players in line outside the house waiting, our turn to go down and audition for the girls. And one would go down, 10 minutes later, he'd come up. Another one would go down, 5 minutes later, he'd come up, So it was my turn. I went down and I never came up. It was like, my 10-minute audition turned into like a 3-hour audition. And then they said, well, you're our guy. And we started playing, 5-7 days a week in Detroit, and then ventured off to New York. Was our first, we played Ohio a lot, in Indiana, but we went to New York, and then we never came back.
Wow. So you guys kind of made your own way. You were playing constantly. You started touring, and then you eventually end up in LA. That's correct, right?
That is. Yeah,
so
we were road dogs for sure.
So when you end up in LA, walk me through like how that all went down. You hit the strip and you're playing, and you eventually, I believe it was 1984 that you release We Reserve the Right. So what was that like leading up to that?
Well, dude, we played all over America literally for years. And we started writing music, and we would test the music in front of a live audience. It's like we were still playing covers, but we were playing like really cool covers. And we had we were louder, brighter, bigger, badder than everybody else. We had a semi tractor trailer, 18 wheels, loaded full of lights and sound. When we went into a venue, it looked like Madison Square Garden. I mean, it was walls of Marshalls and 120K of power cans, which is 120,000 watts. That's 120 1,000 watt fixtures that our crew would put up in the air and bring down. And then we would drive 6,000 miles to the next show, sometimes overnight, set it all up again with, I don't know how many, 20,000 plus watts, which was a lot of audio back then. So much audio that Motorhead came to America, and they were doing like a club tour ish. And we were that band that would be like, okay, so you're supplying production for Motorhead, and you're also the opening act. That was actually in Baltimore, Maryland, that happened to us. But that was a frequent thing, because we had the production, and we were a great band. And so we were playing all over America. And I told our agent, John, I said, we want to go to Los Angeles to get our record deal. We were just so assuming that we were so deserving of this, so naive, and had no idea what we were doing. We kind of did, but really we didn't know what was, there was 10,000 other bands trying to get that same deal. We didn't, understand that. We just thought it was our turn. We might as well go. So he books this. He gives us 2 weeks off on the road. We went from Phoenix, Arizona. No, we went from El Paso, Texas. I remember there was this. Yeah, we did our show there, and then our next show was in Los Angeles. And we had 2 weeks and these bookings. So we show up to the first gig. They'd have no idea who the hell we are or why we're there. Go to the next one, go to the third one. And then the guy says, yeah, it was like somewhere down in Costa Mesa or something, not a relevant show. And it turns out we had 2 weeks to kill and no victims, right? We had no place to play. So we started beating the strip, and I got us a gig at Madame Wong's West, and then another one at the Troubadour. So Madame Wong's West was on Sunday and Troubadour was on a Thursday. And we played, I bought a rock club after I retired the first time from the music business. And one of the guys that came to play is one of the guitar players for Guns N' Roses. After Izzy left. What's that dude's name? Oh my God.
Oh, there were so many.
Yeah, well, it was the guy that directly replaced Izzy Stradlin. And so he's playing, goes, you know who I am? I said, yeah, I'm sorry, dude. If you ever see this, I apologize.
Gilby Clarke.
Gilby Clarke. Oh, you're fast. And so Gilby says, you know who I am? I said, yeah, you're Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. He says, well, yeah, but I'm also the house sound man the night you guys played at Madame Wong's.
Oh, wow.
So we had this big, it was it was like hugs and kisses. And there was this woman there, at Madame Wong's, there was, I don't know, 50, 60, 100 people, not many. And we did our full show. We brought in the whole semi,
Yeah.
And there was a woman there. Jesus, her name escapes me too. And she says, you guys are amazing. I got to take you to this place. The Rainbow Bar and Grill. Don't bother changing. We're all hot and sweaty. I got assless chaps on with a piece of leather up my ass crack. We all look like we just came from another planet, right? So we follow her to the Rainbow, and we walk in, and it's sure, yeah. She says it's all rockers are, you're going to fit right in. And we walked in. It was like people are looking like, who the hell are you, and what planet did you fall from? And we're like walking to our booth awkwardly, all eyes on us. And, my hair's like out to here, and, it was, we were in sight. And we walked past this booth, and there's 3 guys in the booth. And then one says, who you guys, where are you from and who are you? And I said, well, we're Madam X from Detroit, blah, blah, blah. And he said, my name's Bob Street from Jet Records. And if you have anything to give me, I'd be glad to share it with the owner, Don Arden of Jet Records. Wow. So I got him a press kit, and Lucy Forbes is that woman's name. God, I owe her $1 million. And so we do our evening, and the next day I called my agent, and he, because we did that every day, and he says, "Do you know who Don Arden is?" I said, "No." He goes, "Jet Records, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Electric Light Orchestra, 180 million records, and he wants to see you at Troubadour on Thursday." So John, the agent, says, "Here's his number." So I call up Don. Don invites Brett and I down for this quick meeting. He says, introduced himself, and it's a British bulldog of a man, and explains who he is and what he's doing. He says, "And I want to bring down the whole office to see you guys at the Troubadour. So put us on the guest list." And we went back and shared this information with the rest of the band. And sure enough, Troubadour gig on Thursday. Who's there? Blackie Lawless, a handful of other people, and the entire Jet office staff. And we played our asses off. We played like our asses were on fire. We were lit. And we finished our show and went up to the dressing room. It's like exit stage left, and there's stairs that go up to a second-story dressing room. And we just wiping off and toweling off, and my bass tech / stage manager runs up like his ass is on fire, bursts through the door. "Don Arden's on his way up, and he wants to meet you guys." So Don comes in and says, "You're my Madam X." In his British voice, "You're my greatest find in 5 years, and I'd like to sign you to my label, and we're going to pick the producer, and it'll be on Jet Records, distributed by CBS. I'll get all the paperwork in line. I want you to go back on the road and play. Call me every day. Let me know where you are." We talk for probably an hour or more, but this is the nuts and bolts of the conversation, and we got a record deal. Wow. We went back on the road and called him every day. We were in Wichita Falls, Texas, getting ready we just arrived. I called Jet. He says, "Don't bother unpacking. Get on. I've got flights for you. Get on the airplane. Send your crew on to the next city. You're going to do a soundtrack. I have you doing a soundtrack for a movie." And we flew back that day, landed, and went to the Hyatt Regency on Sunset. And we lived there for about a month. Mm-hmm. We went from eating soda crackers and butter, and our meal of the day was whatever they provided for us in the dressing room. I mean, we had a big show. We had big expenses, and we budget ourselves very frugally as a band. And all the money and all our effort, all our energy went to being the best we could be and going to the next city. Right. So, we went from eating frugally to waking up in the morning with, hand squeezed orange juice on the terrace, and filet mignon for every night for dinner, and champagne with strawberries or raspberries rather. And, we went from zero to hero in a really short amount of time. And whatever Don said, we were happy to do, because we were eating and we were happy. It was pretty amazing. So we did a song for a movie called Grandview, USA. We salaried ourselves really meagerly, like $100 a week per band member or something, and everything else went into lights and sound and guitar strings and Marshall heads and cymbals and fuel for the semi to go from point A to point B, and permits to use the road. You have to go through. It was like jumping through hoops of fire every minute. Yeah. And so we went from like starving, as I remember, the meal of the day was whatever they provided us on our rider, for the dressing room food. And that was it. And then we went, Jet Records picked us up. We put us in the Hyatt Regency. We went, we wake up in the morning and dude, it was bacon and eggs and hand squeezed orange juice, from the waiter, on the terrace, at 7 a.m. to be in the studio by 9 to start recording. We were finally being paid, and we were finally eating properly, and sleeping in a proper hotel. And the crew was still on the road. We left them. I think they made it to Houston, and they were camping there for like not camping, but they were on standby for a month waiting for us to do what we were doing.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it was the life,
I bet. I'm sure. So, I mean, when We Reserve the Right actually, gets released and comes out, you guys had to be ecstatic that, your first record was out and you got Jet Records behind you pushing it. Do you remember how you felt when that actually happened?
Well, I didn't, there's a thing where, you may have experienced this yourself, that if something good is going to happen and you start telling people about it, it's like jinx, and then it doesn't materialize for some reason. It's just the way it goes in this universe that we live in. And so I kept it a secret. I didn't tell my family. None of us did, that we had a deal pending and that this was going to happen. It wasn't until we signed the contracts and received checks for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, like one after the other. This is for publishing. This is for merch advance. This is for, your record budget. This is for your for your tour support. This, was like bam, 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 bam. That I told my family, like, it was like all my Christmases in my entire life got delivered in one day. I felt that feeling of elation. And then, we were like, well, the songs that were written before we got our deal were High School, Cat's Got Your Tongue. Oh my God, there was quite a few that got us that were like written and we were playing in along the road. Metal in My Veins, Dirty Girls, songs like that. And then we had 30 days to write the rest of the record. And we wrote a lot of songs, and Don would pick the songs, say this direction, do this. I want it cute, 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 cute. He wanted it. We were a little more edgy and metally, Judas Priest-y, that kind of, style of writing before Jet Records. And a little edgy, Don wanted it cute. And so we gave him what he wanted. In a perfect world, I don't know, like, you can't change the past. It is what it is. And I'm happy, even if it wasn't my dream. And I hated the album cover. We hated that album cover. That photo session was taken in Houston, Texas. I don't remember the photographer's name, but we hated it.
Yeah.
We just didn't like the way we looked. It was, it wasn't our idea of how we wanted to be presented. However, the photographer got wind that we got a deal, and sent the proofs to Jet Records, and they loved it. This is it, kids. You look so young, and it's so edgy, and it's so this, that, and the other thing. And we love it. And I remember the girls, Maxine and Roxy, like in the halls of Jet Records, sitting on the floor, pounding their fists on the floor, screaming, "No, this can't be!" It was something else. But it is what it is. If you look at the album cover closely, CBS airbrushed my arm off, one of my arms. They took all my pubic hair away. They made me look more lurchish than I actually looked.
Man,
shock value, I guess. I'm not even sure. But it is what it is, and you can't change the past.
Well, I'll tell you what, just from from my standpoint, the songs on that record are fun. They're good songs, and they still hold up. They're part of my gym playlist regularly, and it is a very, very good album. And
thank you.
Now, the fans of my podcast are going to be mad at me if I don't ask this next question, so I have to. So I hope you understand that I have to. For a brief period, you had Sebastian Bach in the band.
We did.
How did you feel about that at the time? And looking back on it now, in hindsight, how do you feel about that?
Well, there's many versions of the story, but I will tell you the truth, because a lot of people spin, and a lot of people, I read Wikipedia on the band, and that's not even correct. Just like, I don't know where these people come up with stuff, but there's some, inaccuracies. But so what happened was we were with Jet Records, and we were slated to do our second record.
Okay.
And we were having consistent meetings with Don. There's a lot of in the music business. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. Any musician will tell you if you ask them the hurry up and wait period. It's like, the public, they see you when they see you, and they think that everything is like, it's pretty tight timeline. Well, there's a lot of waiting around for the next thing to happen. So we were waiting. We're in a holding pattern while they took care of all the paperwork. And as I remember, our flats were rented in London, and they picked our producer, and then all of a sudden meetings with Don were not as frequent and being canceled and so forth. So we had we got a phone call from Pat Siciliano, who was the vice president of Jet Records at the time, and said, so your meeting's canceled. And Black Sabbath was with Jet Records at that time. Lita Ford was with Jet Records at that time. Air Supply, All Out of Love, one of their big songs, with Jet Records. Jet Records was responsible for Electrolyte Orchestra and Ozzy Osbourne, and Sharon Arden Osbourne, Ozzy's wife, is Don Arden's daughter. Yeah. So when Don managed us, he also was fighting over the control of Ozzy, and Sharon won. She married him. But it was that kind of. He was a pretty much a power. He was an angry man, and he got what he wanted. And however, when we needed to jump on a Rat tour or a Quiet Riot tour or whatever, people were not, as managers and labels were not so eager to work with Don, because Don had maybe crossed them in some financial way or some business fashion. And, there was those, let's go do this. We're not so frequent and willing. People were not willing to help or take on, a new band like Madam X, but, because of Don. Yeah. So all of a sudden, then we get a call that from Pat. It's like, the DA is in with Don. You can't meet with him today. It's like, well, I didn't even know what the DA was, but turned out it was a district attorney. So what happened was Don had legal woes. He was extradited to England for attempted murder charges.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, it was something to do with his accountant, and he chased the accountant down and beat the piss out of the accountant. And Don told me the story. I was standing, we were in a room together, Don and I, and he told me exactly what happened and what went down. And there's some things I should probably not say because it's maybe sensitive. But so Don beat the piss out of the guy, and the man filed attempted murder charges on Don. And Don was extradited back to England to face these charges. Of course, he was acquitted on these charges. Yeah. If Don wanted to kill the guy would have been dead. Don was you didn't want to cross Don. Don told us stories that when he was managing like Rod Stewart or the Small Faces, I think it was, and some of the other groups, and a competing manager or agent was messing with his artist. Don went to the guy's office in London. His henchmen were outside the office door. He went in with two other henchmen and started pounding on the man's desk. And they grabbed the guy and held him by his ankles from like the 5th story window outside the streets of London. And Don's like, if you ever mess with my artist again, blah, blah, blah. And like threatening to drop the guy to the pavement below. Yeah. And Don told me another story that somebody was at the studio while one of his artists were recording. Don, I don't know if he kidnapped him or somehow grabbed him, tied him to a tree out in the woods, and smashed his kneecaps. Another time, he went to someone's house firing like a Thompson machine gun up in the air, and like warning shots, don't mess with my artist. Well, that's the reputation. That's Don. Those are his words, him telling me these stories.
Yeah.
Lost Don. So we were all of a sudden jet office, like a week later, there's big trucks unloading everything from the Jet Records office. They were done.
Oh, wow.
It was done. And we were a baby band going like, Black Sabbath moved on. They were so established. This didn't affect them.
Right.
Lena Ford went, she went on to another situation. Air Supply went on to another situation.
Yeah.
We, as a new band, at that time, Roxy was being pursued by Vixen.
Yeah.
We knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And Brett is like, I'm going to go back to New York and play with my brother. To answer your story, I'm sorry to make this so long.
No,
I
this
have
is
a
great.
lot to say and nobody to tell the story.
No, this is great. This is what I wanted.
So Maxine and I are going like, we need a drummer and we need a singer, right? Yeah. And even if it was only to just go play, and continue what we do, because that was that's how we fed ourselves,
Yeah.
And we had dates lined up, and Roxy said, I'm going to go do the Vixen thing. And Brett's like, I'm going to go play, in New York. Brett was from New York and his family was on Long Island, and we could understand that. So Maxine and I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a man there at Rick Center at a place called Rockers, a big rock club that Madam X was very popular at. Mm. And Rick was kind enough to say, open his house up to us, live with me, put your band together. You can rehearse here at the club. I'll feed you. I'll and he did. Yeah. He was like, he was like, he opened up his world to us. And I was at Rockers one day, and there was a group came in. It was a Black Sabbath tribute band, and there was this incredible drummer doing a sound check. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm hearing, and a super showman, his name is Mark McConnell. Mm-hmm. And so I approached him and I told him who I am and what I'm doing. And he left his band that minute and joined Madam X. He finished his show and they had to go back to Florida and find another drummer.
Wow.
And then, so we had a guitarist, myself, and a drummer. Mm-hmm. And we got Madam X did it just before the Jet Records meltdown. Yeah. We did a tour of Canada, and there was a young lad in the front row, and at multiple shows in Toronto. And I got a phone call from the promoter who did about a half a dozen shows with us in Canada, Sean Pilot. And he said, I understand you guys are looking for a singer. And I have a kid, his name is Sebastian. And I said, well, send us stuff, and it came to us in a manila envelope with a 8x10 and a bio and a cassette, old school shit, right? No EPK. And I go, okay, here, I open it up. I look at the photo. I go, holy shit. My initial thought was, guys like this can't sing, I kind of just brushed it off because it was a pretty amazing 8x10. Yeah. And I popped in the cassette, read the bio, popped in the cassette, and was like, oh my God, I can't believe my ears, right? I did it in Rick Center's Lincoln because the stereo in his Lincoln was better than the stereo in my Camaro. And I was like, oh shit. So Rick flew him out, or we left for Michigan, Maxine and myself and Mark, to Detroit. And Sebastian came on a train from Toronto to Detroit. Oh, okay. Yeah, really. This is how it went, bro. There's nothing fancy in the Madam X camp. So Maxine and I come across the border to Windsor to meet Sebastian at the train station. And I'm like low key, my hair is down, probably in a ponytail, I'm dressed like a normal dude. Yeah. Maxine, looking normal. And we're going to pick this 17-year-old kid up at the train station and bring him across the border to Michigan. And we're waiting there at the train. The train pulls up. People are filing off, and out comes Sebastian, looking like he's on a runway in Paris with his hair out to here and makeup on, and looking like he's ready for the stages. And I'm like, oh my God, this isn't going to work. So he's got his suitcase, and he's loud as fuck. And dude, this is going to be amazing, And he's all lit. We get him in the car, and we get to the customs, and customs is never friendly, even if you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Look at your ass behind your ears,
Yeah.
It's all about how they can pressure you into buckling. So it's Maxine and myself. We got our passports, and we're trying to be real low key. And Sebastian in the back seat, and the guy says, "And so what? I'm Sebastian Bach, and I'm going to be a rock star." I was like, do you have a passport? No. Do you have any money? No. Where are you staying? I don't know. It's like, no. Go back to Toronto.
Oh my God.
So we drive him back to Toronto to find his birth certificate, because he didn't have a driver's license. He had nothing. He had his health card, as I remember, from the Ontario Ministry. That was his ID.
Yeah.
And, so we meet with his mother. She gets his birth certificate together and all this stuff, and we did a different crossing. We didn't use the Windsor crossing. We went up to Sarnia, which is about 100 miles north, because there's no computers,
Yep.
We didn't want to run into that dude again. I told you guys to get the F out of here a day ago. What are you doing, Matt?
Oh my God.
So we came up with a new thing that he's my cousin, and we're bringing him on vacation. We're going to go to some amusement parks. And that worked.
Oh, wow.
It was low key. So he came to America, and
that was a really good Sebastian Bach impression, by the way. That was like really good.
He's my bro. I love that kid. I taught him how to drive. Got a driver's license with his driver's license and his musicians. With music, I can't even think of what it is. You get a card that says you're a musician. Federation of Musicians, American Federation of Musicians. That was his ID to get to be legit in the United States. And he said, "I said, how'd you do it, bro? Because he's Bahamian,
Yeah.
Since I used my driver's license and my American Federations of Musicians card,
Yeah.
And Doc McGee, I guess, helped him with that as well. So it was, and I'm happy to have him, in the United States. But that was it, And we had him. He was 17, turned 18 with us, and he was a wild man. It was every day he'd wait, dude. He was lit. He lived with me in Shelby Township, Michigan.
Yeah,
for about a year and a half, and he'd wake up, scream at the top of his lungs and singing at the top of his lungs in the bathroom. It's like, dude, you're wearing me out, like,
Jesus.
I was like,
that's everything you would expect to hear about Sebastian Bach.
He was all about the camera, he'd wear, if I had on like mirrored sunglasses and we're just like low key, you think he's paying attention to what you're saying, but really he's checking himself out in your sunglasses to see how good he looks, The mirrors are his best friend.
I love that.
It's just the way it is. But that's who he is.
Yeah.
I love him.
Well, I mean,
he can sing. Dude, he can sing. What the crushing point for me is not that he was not capable of being that guy. Would he have been a rock star? Of course, that's his destiny. I mean, it was, that's what he was born to be, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
With us, he was very young. And in the early days of Madam X, he was very into doing and being everything that he needed to be to get there. We would walk or run 10 miles a day, every day. That's what we did. It was our thing. And we would do these, like my old publicist is Michael Levine Agency in Los Angeles. When Michael Levine was Madam X publicist, He was also working for Prince, Michael Jackson, Madonna, the biggest of the biggest.
Yeah.
And early on the Madam X days, he did an interview or a meeting with us, and he said, if you have nothing to say, they have nothing to print. So don't give yes or no answers. Like Dave Roth, tell us about, where you guys are going. Well, life's like a rear view mirror. It's not, you don't use it to see where you've been. It's to see how good you look while you're getting there. Or, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me? You know what I mean? You got to spice it up. Otherwise ragu is ragu, dude. Don't let it be spaghetti. Throw some spice in it. And anyhow, so we would do these mock interviews with Sebastian to help him, be more, have more to say than just a yes and no answer. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were playing in like North Carolina or something, and he was lit, but he wasn't always aware of his surroundings on stage. Like he'd spin around with his mic stand, a cast iron piece of metal on the end of a pole, not aware that I'm 3 feet away from him and clip me, bam, right in the shins, like hard enough to drop you to your knees. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. Bam, punch him in the arm like and he said I want to be great. Make me great. You spit on me. Do whatever you have to make me great. Like, all right. Like, you're flat. It didn't take too many times of me humiliating him to, but he wanted to, and that made him. It forced him to be. We'll all be lazy because that's human nature. If you're good enough, you're good enough. Do I need to practice? No, I've achieved my goals. I'm good enough to do what I want to do. I'll never play bass and strive to be Billy Sheehan.
Yeah.
I'm lazy. Could I, if I put my mind to it and dedicated my life to, it would take me years, but I could achieve some of his, ability.
Mm.
That's not who I am. Billy is Billy because that's who he is. That's who he wants to be.
Right.
And he dedicated his life to being that guy.
Right.
So I pushed Sebastian to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed myself to be better. But again, we'll all be lazy. And unless that's, unless we're striving, unless you have a clear vision of where you want to be, and you're driven to get there, you'll be Steve Vai, you'll be Billy Sheehan, you'll be, the greatest of the great, you'll be Sebastian Bach.
Yeah. But
you won't be that great unless you have a reason to be, or you're driven, and you want to be. That's it.
So, I mean, the wild thing about, Sebastian being in the band is you hear so much about it as if he had like so much longevity with you guys, which obviously he did not. But what did end up happening is you did release a second record, but it came over 30 years later when you did Monstrosity, which was a lot heavier than We Reserve the Right. But you did do High in High School again, which I thought was really cool. When you moved on and life happens, things happen, the original members get back together, you release Monstrosity. You personally, how did you feel about that specific record? Because it is a lot different, and it is, that heavy metal sound,
Yeah, it's heavier. We wrote a lot of songs for that record. And some of the songs were great songs and didn't make it on the record because at some point the record started to morph into a heavier piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the band was a little bit heavier, as I mentioned earlier, that we were a little Judas Priesty in the early Madam X days, a little, we were a little Motley Crue-ish before, I mean, that's just who we were, I guess a little Accept-ish, the group Accept with Udo Dirksnyder. Those were influences in Madam X in the early days.
Yeah.
So Monstrosity is a departure from the We Reserve the Right era, but it's not so different than who we were as musicians originally.
Mhm.
I wrote some songs that were a little lighter and a little fluffier, a little more fun,
Mhm.
anthemy than the Monstrosity record, but didn't make it on because of their just not fitting the, we ended up getting with EMP Records.
Mhm.
And Tom Hazard, he liked the heavier side of what we were doing. So we kind of focused our attention to that direction. And we were self-produced. I was happy to be self-produced in the early days, but hindsight 2020, we wasted a lot of money, a lot of energy, and a lot of time wrecking songs. We just we go in and re-record it, do another version of it, re-record it until it lost its energy, its life. And some of the early songs or early versions of those songs, I believe, were better, more energetic, and had more earnest, heartfelt life than the beat to death versions that ended up on the record. And that's our fault. And because we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted, we did whatever we wanted. And sometimes the first take is the best take. Honestly.
Well, so I guess that kind of segues me into now, because it's been 6 years since Monstrosity, but there is another full-length album coming out, which we're telling our listeners about right now.
It's amazing. It's really over the top, crazy great.
So this one's coming out, I believe, on Frontier, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Frontier's putting this one out, and you're still wrapping up the final recordings in that. Are we looking at more of a Monstrosity sound, or We Reserve the Right sound, or are we somewhere between?
It's going back to 80s roots.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a fan of anything 80s, this is the record. It's got heavy elements to it, but it's produced by Chris Laney, who is a Grammy nominated Swedish producer. He's worked with Europe. He's done so many great projects, and he's part of the Pretty Maids camp. He understands the 80s sound. When we record a song and send the demos to him, and then he'll put his spin on the demos, or we'll track, and he'll give us a rough mix of the tracks. It's like, I get the same feeling when I hear his magic to our songs and he's instrumental in picking, this is a great direction. And Henrik Halverson as well, another Swedish lad who's part of the Madam X camp. They're like the overseers of keeping us in check, of what's a great direction for this record. And I hear this stuff back, and I'm like, I get the same feeling when I hear these songs back as I first got when I first heard Historia, Pyromania, Mutt Lange's Back in Black. Is like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm hearing this. I'm getting that, Jesus Christ.
Wow.
It's like simply amazing. We'll send a demo, and he'll slice it up and do an arrangement on it and extend the chorus. And then it's like, dude, that's exactly what it's like. Wow. Unbelievable. I'm so proud and so happy to have this record coming out, and it's worth the wait. I know we've been talking about it. We don't rush into anything. 5 years, 6 years, 16 years. What's the difference?
Yeah. I mean, in that regard, 6 years since the last release, do we have, I know there's no release date right now, but do we have a rough estimate on time period? 2024
is what I'm hoping for. We only have several tracks and some bells and whistles. And we have 2 or 3 final tracks to do, and then then it goes to Brett for final vocals.
Okay.
and then it'll come back to us for backing vocals or any little bells or whistles, and then it's got to be mixed, and that's on Chris's timeline because Chris is a very busy boy with other projects. So yeah, 2024. I can see the finish line. I can.
Well, with that all being said, we're going to segue out of strictly music for a minute, and we're going to do a little thing that we like to do on this podcast. We're going to do the lightning round with Godzilla, and we're going to ask you a this or that or some kind of random question, and you're just going to give me the first thing that pops into your head.
Sure. And
this is going to be for the fans to just kind of get to know you a little bit more. And these are going to be questions that have nothing to do with anything, but we're going to do it anyway.
I love it. Bring it on.
All right. So first question that we ask everyone, New York style or Chicago style pizza?
New York.
Favorite TV show?
Mayberry with Andy Griffith's show.
Yeah. So this one could be now, could be when you were a kid. Favorite cartoon?
Felix the Cat.
Log cabin or beach house?
Log cabin.
All right. Now I'm going to put you.
I love both.
I like being secluded, so I'm going with the log cabin myself. But
I love people. I just don't want them up my ass 24/7.
So this one, I'm going to put you up against the sisters. All right. It's going to be a Roxy or Maxine question. Drum solo, guitar solo.
Which do I prefer?
Yep.
Guitar solos, because Maxine will shred for 20 minutes and give me a minute to take a break and grab a cocktail.
All right.
But Roxy pounds as hard, if not harder than any man that I've ever played with.
Yeah.
She kills it, and she does a great solo, and she's always smiling. So I'm just
oh god, yeah, she's absolutely fantastic. They both are. Horror movie or comedy?
Horror.
Bermuda Triangle on a plane or a boat?
Boat.
Why?
I like the rocking of the sea, and I'll take any storm. I love it. Although my plane was struck by lightning while landing at Gatwick Airport, and I wasn't panicked until I saw the flight attendants freaking out, and then I thought, "Well, shit, we're gonna die, and I better kiss my ass goodbye." And then we straightened out, and the pilot said we were just struck by lightning. We're landing. We were about 1,000 feet off the runway. It was pretty close.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
that is insane.
It was like tremoring, like boom.
I bet. Jesus. So last lightning round question: Bigfoot or Loch Ness?
Loch Ness.
Why?
I always love a monster, and I just identify more with a Loch Ness and the whole, Scottish. Although I would like to run across a Bigfoot.
Yeah, so would I. I actually have a Bigfoot story that scared the shit out of me one time when I was on a road trip. Go on. I'll tell you about it when we're done recording here.
No, dude, the fans want to hear this.
All right.
Let me guess. You're in a outhouse, and the outhouse started to rock back and forth.
No, not that. So
and the hand came in with toilet paper.
So I'm a professional wrestler. And so I was coming back from a wrestling road trip. I was in Vermont. I was crossing over the border into New York. And I believe we were somewhere around White Plains, New York.
I know that area.
Do you really?
Yeah, we played White Plains.
Well, so you would probably know then that they're huge into Bigfoot there.
Yeah.
And they have like a Bigfoot festival. There's supposedly sightings all the time. So we have our matches in Vermont and we're crossing back over into New York. And we hit this road, which was just like a dead zone. There was no radio. Our cell phones had no service. There was no street lights. The only thing you would see is like a broken down shack every 20 feet. And clearly nobody's been there in some time. And of course, we're joking around and I had my cell phone out with the flashlight on and I'm shining it in the woods and I'm going, oh my God, can you imagine if we see a Bigfoot? We come around this bend and all three, now mind you, there's 3 wrestlers in this car. My phone falls out of my hand. We all go completely silent. All we see is this massive gray creature on 2 legs standing next to a boulder. And the boulder's is coming up maybe not even to its hip. And it turns, it takes 2 steps forward and disappears because the strides were so long and it was just gone into the woods. we had no phones, no radio, no lights. The only thing we had was the lights of the car with the high beams, and that was it. And we all saw it at the exact same time, freaked everybody out. We assume that that's what we saw just because it was on two legs and it was massive and we were in a hotbed for it. But it just came at such a random time that we were pretending to look for it. And then there it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It scared the crap out of us. So we didn't say a word for like 20 minutes. We drove, and then the radio signal came back on and our cell phones clicked back to, normal. And then it was, okay, now we can talk about this because now I feel safer.
Wow.
Yeah. So true story. 100% true story.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I support, I break for Bigfoot.
Yeah. I mean, well, so do we now.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yep. So that's my Bigfoot story. So that's why that question gets thrown in there, because I like to see where other people stand with that.
Yeah, I believe, the world's a fantastic place. I believe we don't know all about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I think on that Bigfoot story, the last thing I want to do with you is have you plug your social media, whatever you're on, because I want people to know when the album's going to drop as soon as you get any kind of release date, and of course, if any gigs happen to pop up or anything that you want to promote, or just when you have the album art, name of the album, whatever, I want them to be able to find you so that they can find all that information.
Fantastic. Well, you can find us on look on madamex.org. Madamex.org. Thank you very much, Robbie, for the podcast. On a side note, I'm doing a side project called Hair Nation, and I'm playing everyone else's music, and it's just it's an 80s tribute band, but I'm playing with some really talented, ultra talented people, and we deliver it like you're watching an 80s concert with that kind of earnest energy. The big stage show. It's fun. It's every rock's. And what the best part about it? I'm learning everyone else's bass parts, and it's actually making me a better player. It's Bon Jovi, it's The Crew, it's Lynch Mob, Wicked Sensation, and it's just Cinderella. It's Poison. It's everybody, but it's a lot of fun. It gives me opportunity to go out and play consistently. Between Madam X days. So I'm really happy to do that. Excellent.
And, just one last thing. Would you be willing to maybe come back on the podcast sometime in the future? Not only,
absolutely.
I want to hear more stories from you because you're such a great storyteller. And if you wanted to come back on and maybe tell some of your favorite Madam X stories or something like that.
I've got a boatload.
Well,
oh my God. I've thrown up. I've shit myself.
I've been told that you have all the stories because you have a great memory by Roxy. So
I'll tell you a quick one. We're playing in Phoenix, Arizona. And it was Phoenix, Arizona. And we knew how well, this is before we were signed, we knew how well we were doing because of the cars or overflowing from the venue's parking lot and would be parked on every street, like in New York. We're playing at Lemore's and Brooklyn's, and there's 1,000-seat clubs got 2,000 people in it, and you can't find a place to right. So we're pulling up, and we see the blue lights outside the club, and we see people lined up against the wall, and we're going, oh, somebody got busted as we're pulling in. It's just about showtime. We get real close, and we look as our road crews lined up off the jail for smoking a joint before we went on stage. It's like we had to use house engineers and no bass tech. Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny.
It's the trials and tribute of being on the road.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, I would love to have you back on for more stuff like that, but I do appreciate you being on today and bearing with me through some technical difficulties, so I appreciate it.
I'm glad we got it figured out. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you,
everyone. Stay safe.
Landed all goes black.
right, Rock Soldiers, once again, that was Chris Doliber, Godzilla, speaking on behalf of Madam X. So be on the lookout for that new record and make sure you're following him on his social media, the Madam X social media page, of course, on Instagram and Facebook, and their website. And we will also be bringing you the news as soon as we know when it's dropping. We will be letting you know. So we will catch you guys next time on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.